Hello everyone, I'm just going to go over the stub area types with Alcatel-lucent. So I'm going to show you guys what would happen is we are going to set up router 5 is going to be an ASBR router with a BGP session coming from our Viren node here. So what's going to happen is this is going to be area 1 going into area 0. So this is going to be the ASBR producing type 5 LSAs, which are going to be the external LSAs being learned from BGP going into area 1 and into exported into, or I guess in this case we technically imported, but the wording is a little funny since we have to create an export policy here to export BGP into OSPF, and at which point this is the connection from router 5 to router 1. This is going to be our ABR, or area border router. Area border router is going to take the AS external LSAs, which are going to be all the routes being learned from our external source, meaning BGP routes. And at this point, the ABR will be distributing the external LSA type 5 into area 0, as well as this router is going to generate a type 4. And the type 4 is the ASBR LSA type, which basically tells all these routers how to get to it. So let's go ahead and take a look at this config. So from router 5, we have our BGP neighbor session with Viren here. So in a previous video I showed you guys what Viren is. It's just a little tool to generate a bunch of routes. So the physical interface here, 2.2, as you can see, this is my neighbor here from router 5. So this is up right now and it's just dumping all sorts of stuff into my router. So if I do a show router route table BGP, you can see these are all remote routes being learned through our BGP protocol. So it's quite a bit of them, but it's just good for an example. So anyways, just go ahead and shut this out of there. And this is still running, so I pre-configure this stuff just because it's not kind of a process there. So now let's see, we want to do configure router 5 into the ASBR. So right now it's just set up as an area 0. So what we actually want to do is configure this ASBR. So now it's going to be able to export all those routes. So I think I said it was area 1 earlier in the video, but we're going to just stick to area 0. And actually, no, I'm sorry, we're going to do that. So there's nothing there. So area 0 interface to router 1. Interface to point to point. As always throughout the labs, make these point to point adjacencies. So I'll go ahead and hop over to router 1. Okay, so let's look at our Alright, that's why. So to router 1 is, or to router 5, I'm sorry. Okay. Alright, so area 0, we're going to add interface to router 5. Nope, no we're not. No interface to router 5. We're going to add area 1. And this is going to be interface to router 5. So at this moment now, this is now our area border router. That's kind of an implied thing. I don't think it tells you. Yeah, it doesn't say. So it's got 2 areas now. So this is our border router. So now let's see, SROS, neighbor. Okay, so if we go to router 5, this is actually incorrect. Area. So one thing I found, Alcatel 7750s will let you just nuke the whole area without any confirmation or any sort of, warning. So that's kind of scary if it's a production environment and you just remove the whole area. So as you can see, area 0 is there. I can just go ahead and say no area 0 and it'll just rip it all off. Usually it'll have you shut something down or remove a port on the interface before it lets you pull something. So that's kind of weird that this particular command just works. It could be very dangerous. So anyway, so we'll go ahead, area 1. So interface to router 1, interface to point to point. Okay, so now we got our area 1 configured. So router 5 to router 1. Okay, now let's see. So router 5, interface, so to router 1. Let's make sure we can ping it. 1.5.1. It's pingable. Might just take a minute here. Oh, there's our problem. So 0.5 interface point to point. Okay, so now we've got to router 5 in area 1. So if we do show router route table OSPF so you can see these are just between 2 and 4, 3 and 4. So it's just area 0 here. So the router 5, even though it's set as an ASBR, it's not actually importing the route from BGPs. So these are here. So what I went ahead and did was I made a prefix list and I just kind of dumped everything into the /24. However, what I actually ended up going with was I just made an entry from one protocol to another, and that way it just dumps everything just for ease throughout the lab. So this policy statement's already created, so it's BGP to OSPF. So what I'm going to do is go to OSPF and just export it here. So export BGP to OSPF. Okay. So now that should be going from here to our area 0. So let's pull up router 1. The same. So there they are. So now everything is being learned remotely through OSPF, and then here's a good thing to keep an eye on is this preference. So 150, that means it's an external OSPF route. So now we know that it's not, being learned from just another area. This is literally being exported as an AS external route. So show router. And there they are, AS external. So all of these would be our external type 5s. And router 1 is seeing those. And it's also going to be advertising a type 4 ASBR, which you can see here. So now that is pretty much set up to be our autonomous system border router, router 5, bringing in routes from BGP into OSPF. So another thing we could do is I want to take a look at setting up a not so stubby area on router 6. So let's see what we got going on. Yeah. Okay, so there's nothing here. Alright, so let's take this SBR. So let's just start from scratch here. This is previous configuration. Okay. Alright. So there's nothing here. Okay, so let's make this area 2. Okay. So here's our area 2, and we're going to make this a stub. Well, we'll hold off on that. So let's go to router 2 now. Okay, so there's no area 2 in here, so we'll make this a area border router. Configure area 2. I'm going to do interface to router 6, point to point. Okay, so there's our neighbor to router 6. So router 6 right now is going to, theoretically, should be learning everything. So let's take a look at its route table. Yep, so those are all the AS external routes, which are, again, being learned from BGP, imported into OSPF. So there's our ASBR.5, which is this guy in area 1. And this is our area border into area 0, which is router 2 at the moment. So if I do OSPF database, you can see all these routes. So that's a lot of routes. What we could do is configure this router 6 as a stub and then make sure that we don't see these. So let's take a look at area 2. There's nothing there, so we make this a stub. Now we're gonna lose our neighbor here because every router's area needs to be configured as a stub. So show router is. So what we need to do is go back to router 2. Show an area 2. So area 2, make that a stub. Now, oops. There's my router 2. So let's go take a look at the route table now. Show router table. Alright, so that looks a lot better. So there's a lot of stuff in here from all my labs and messing around, but what we're getting out of this is all those type 5s are no longer being learned. So with the stub, so stub will block, so it's going to block 3s, I'm sorry, nope, it's going to block 4s and 5s, and that way you can make the route table a little bit easier on the router. And then another thing it's going to do, it will add a default. So as you can see over here, now this is implemented automatically. So if we want to have this stub include, say this area is a stub, but we want to have routes from an external source be imported back into our OSPF area 0, but we don't want to learn these guys from router 5's routes. So what we can do is configure this as a not so stubby. So when it's a not so stubby, it will still block 4 and 5's, but it's going to take these routes from an external source, so they're going to be AS external routes, and it's going to bring them in through the stub area, but it's going to mask them as a type 7. So this was one of the things that kind of confused me the most. These are technically 5s, but in order to get around it, they're being called type 7s, and then our ABR is going to convert these into a type 5. That way everybody sees those routes. So let's see what we can do here. So let's bring this up. Alright, so to Viren we got 2.1. So let's see if this is up now. Just taking a moment. Okay. Alright, so let's see if this is already configured here from before. Okay, so same deal here. I had already pre-configured this BGP session with my Viren external source here. This peer is going to be a different peer, obviously, so there's no confusion. Show router route table. So nothing's coming in yet. Make sure those are sending through. Make sure our session's up. Okay, port 111. Make sure this is the right port. Yep. Okay, we should be good there. Make sure it's up. Oops. Alright, so I just had to take a minute to figure this out here. It looks like this BGP session's idle, and this was my problem here. For some reason, there was no local AES set, autonomous system, or an address, so what I did was I just went into my configure router BGP, set my local AES number, and then my router ID, and then at that point my peer established. So now, oops. Okay, so we're good to go. So show router table. So now the subnet I'm implementing here is 100.0.0.0.24, I believe, or something close to it. So if we want to make this a not so stubby area and also export type 7s into area 0, even though we technically shouldn't be able to since those are being blocked. Let's take a look at router 2 here. So no 100 prefixes. Alright. So in our ABR, going to area 2, so we will configure this as a not so stubby instead of a stub. So again, every router needs to be configured as a stub if it's because the stub flag has to match. Router OSPF area 2. So not a stub, not so stubby. Alright, so if we go back to router 2, remember the route table, there's no 100 prefixes there. And actually we're still not going to learn anything since our policy is not in there. Remember, external routes need to be exported into OSPF. So router policy options. So again, it's already here. Same thing as the other policy. So you make a statement, make an entry. To make things easy, you do one protocol to the other protocol, you accept it. Pretty basic. Then you go OSPF, bring export from BGP. So now all those routes are being dumped into BGP, or into OSPFs. Okay, so this is just our OSPF. This is our BGP. There's our full table. Now let's go take a look at router 2. Oh, not in there still, so let's see. Not so stubby. This should be going through. Okay, easy summarize. Okay. So the reason they're not being imported quite yet is because we missed a step. So in order to bring routes, external routes into OSPF, remember you gotta have your router be an ASBR. So you can see my router is not an ASBR yet, so area 2 SBR back SBR. Okay. Alright, now we should be seeing something in router 2. There we go. So all of our routes, again, external preference here, 150, remote through OSPF. So if you remember, if this was a stub, none of these routes pump through, but now that it's a not so stubby area, it brings routes, external routes as a type 7, type 5 converted by the ABR, distributed into OSPF area 0. So there's our type 7s, not so stubbies. And then here's our type 5 for this guy. And here are the type 5s, I'm sorry, external routes and the 4s. So that's basically it. Now, let's see what else we can do. From router 6, so show router. So right now, as a not so stubby, the default setting for not so stubby is it doesn't have a default route. So what you could do is on the ABR, on area 2, the not so stubby area, so you originate, where to go, not so stubby, originate default route. So now you can see that a default route is implemented on our not so stubby area, which is our router 6 here. So another thing we can do is, since the not so stubby is blocking 3 and 4 LSA types here, so actually we're getting our summaries, so what we can do is say no summaries. So not so stubby, no summaries. So now it's blocking LSA type 3s for summary routes. So let's do that again. So now those summaries are gone. Now this is just a default. So there we go. So that's basically what a not so stubby area is doing there. There's different ways to configure it. Again, no summaries to block LSA type 3s. Originate a default route under the not so stubby ABR in order to implement the default route on the not so stubby area, ASBR router. So yeah, there you have it.